Hello, welcome to Sports World Have Your Say with me, Amanda Davis, on a week filled with derbies, dissent and a disappointing dishing out of red cards. Coming up.
If we'd got a yellow card, would have been really annoyed, but to brandish a red card.
Red is the colour on Merseyside, but it shouldn't have been for Everton's Jack Rodwell. The referees' debate is back. It's a walk in the park for Spurs. Well, not exactly, but Kyle Walker gives them victory over Arsenal in the North London derby. Are you one of the many who owes this man an apology? There's been none from him, but could his tantrum be a turning point in the balance of power? His manager has had enough.
Finish for the other things. It's not my problem.
Well, Roberto Mancini didn't want to say much about it, but you've had plenty to say already on Twitter and Facebook. Please do get in touch in all the usual ways on the side of your screen there. This week, we've got a player making his debut on Sports World Have Your Say. Away from football, he was an England under-15 cricket captain. He's so scared of animals, he won't visit a zoo and won't even let his children visit one either. But he has won 59 full England football caps, is a Champions League winner with Manchester United and is now the Everton captain. Welcome along to Phil Neville. He's waiting to speak to you and answer your questions. But before we go any further, let's get a summary of the latest news. You're watching Sports World Have Your Say. I'm pleased to say I've got the Everton captain Phil Neville with me waiting to talk to you this week. Why don't you pick up the phone and give us a call using country code 442070 83 73 33. There's been big scoring games in the English Premier League again this weekend. Chelsea thumped Bolton 5-1. Fulham demolished QPR 6-0 for their first league win of the season. And Manchester City put 4 past Blackburn as well. Phil, there's been loads of goals going in. As somebody who plays in defence, what's going on this season?
Well, you always get one weekend in the season where the goals just go in, and I think the result that surprised me most this weekend was the Fulham result today, 6-0. I mean, after the investment and the quality players that QPR have brought in, and the confidence obviously is running high at QPR, to go to your London rivals in a derby game and lose 6-0. I mean, I was pleased for Andy Johnson. I've played with him. He's a great striker, but to lose 6-0 away from home is a bit of an embarrassment for all QPR fans, I'm sure. Yeah, and the other results today, Swansea beat Stoke 2-1, and of course we have to mention the North London derby. Spurs coming out on top on that one, 2-1 against Arsenal. Is that a shift now? Are Spurs the #1 club in North London, do you think? I'm not quite sure yet. I still have faith in Arsene Wenger and Arsenal. I know he's coming in for some unbelievable criticism. I think for what he's achieved at Arsenal, it's slightly unfair. He's building a new team at the moment. Don't forget, he signed 3 or 4 players late on transfer deadline day. Those players need time to settle in and bed into the system. They've got players out injured. Vermaelen is a big miss from in defence, and I think it's in defence where they need to really improve, and in the next 2 weeks they really need to get back to the basics of defending properly. And yes, Spurs have had a great couple of seasons under Harry Redknapp, but I think until they start consistently reaching the Champions League, I don't think we can, start saying that they've overtook Arsenal. OK, well, Swansea fans or Spurs fans, Arsenal fans, Fulham fans, please do get in touch with us. What do you think about what you've seen on the pitch today? But, Phil, we've got to move on to the game that you were involved in yesterday, of course. That was at Goodison Park, and sadly the most talked about man this weekend was the referee Martin Atkinson after the Merseyside derby. Inexplicably sent off Jack Rodwell when you see the pictures back now. Even when you saw it at the time, Everton, as you will know, Phil, have appealed the red card. It's brought the issue of football officials back into the spotlight. It finished 2-0, but didn't really tell the story of the match, I suppose, particularly as you and your side were concerned, Phil. Yeah, it's disappointing. You play against your local rivals, and they are the biggest games of the season. Make no mistake about it. It's a game you want to win for your fans, and for it to be spoilt, tarnished by a defining moment in the game where the referee got the decision wrong was disappointing. And the disappointment was that he gave a red card. I don't think it was even a foul, never mind a yellow or a red card. And earlier in the week, Martin Atkinson came into our training ground with the referee's assessor and give us a talk and a lecture on the rules, the regulations, and we had a really good chat with him on the Tuesday, and we thought going into the game that, yeah, this referee, we've got a good relationship with him, and he's going to referee the game well. And I don't like criticising referees. I think that's the easy option. But yesterday, defining moment in the game, the referee got the decision wrong, and I think it changed the pattern of the game, and ultimately cost us any hope of getting anything out of the game, really.
Well, Phil, at this point, let me introduce you to Alexa. She's an Everton fan in New York who is with us on Skype. And the former international referee, Gylfi Orison, joins us from Iceland. Gylfi, I suppose let's start with you. Any defence at all of Martin Atkinson yesterday?
Not really. This was a refereeing mistake, and it was an honest refereeing mistake. But he should have been held by his assistants, and you know, he's got 2 linesmen and the 4th official, where the 4th official can look at a video screen in this instance or not before making this help to the referee. But this was a wrong decision. I'm sure disciplinary sanction will be removed, but I can understand that's no help for the Everton fans.
Well, it was certainly disappointing for the Everton fans. Phil mentioned that they had a meeting, the players, with the referee this week, and this is what the Everton manager David Moyes thought of the decision to send off Jack Rodwell.
I mean, I think we would have been disappointed if it had been a foul, not a yellow card. A foul would have been disappointed. And if we'd got a foul against us, then you would have been shouting about that. If we'd got a yellow card, would have been really annoyed. But to brandish a red card, you know, this referee came to see both us and Liverpool this week. You couldn't have said that Jack Rodwell was wrong with his tackle. If it's not, then I'm going to have to coach the players differently if that's the case. So, I think it was the wrong appointment by the match officials, and I think to send them into the training ground this week was a poor decision by them as well.
Phil, what did David Moyes say to you in the dressing room after that?
Well, he was obviously, you can tell by his reaction in the post-match interview that he was absolutely raging. I think what he said that was correct was that, 1, he didn't think it was a foul, which I totally agree with. 2, you know, the referee for the game on Saturday that came in to see both clubs on a Monday and Tuesday, I think that was the wrong decision as well. I think that put too much pressure on the referee. I don't like criticising referees. I think they've got a really difficult task. I don't think they get enough help off their association. But, you know, we've not had Martin Atkinson referee us for 12 months because of something that happened 12 months ago. So there's obviously history between ourselves and the referee. Surely they could have picked a lesser, low-profile game, say Wigan away or Aston Villa away, somewhere where, you know, it's not in the public eye. The disappointment for me on Saturday, and listening to the referee from Iceland speaking there, was he wanted help from his assistant, was that he brandishes the red card so quickly that he didn't give himself time to assess the situation. Yeah, it was a tough tackle, but I think if he just took a split second and listened in his ear to his 4th official or to his assistant, I think he would have, you know, collected his thoughts and maybe even just, you know, took a yellow card. But straight away he thought red card, and I think it was that quick-fire decision that really went against him, and that's why we're all disappointed.
Gylfi, do referees need more help?
Yeah, well, to coming back to what Phil was saying, I think, you know, even if he had brandished a red card, you know, if somebody had told him in his ear that this was a wrong decision, he could have said, okay, I made a mistake, and, you know, like put his card in his pocket and then pocket again and said this is not a red card, but he needed help there, and everybody who was watching that realizes it was not the correct decision. Whether the card had been shown early or not, it's not an issue for me. But I'm sorry, I don't know about the referee coming into your dressing room the day before the match or whatever. I don't know about that. I don't know anything about that.
Alexa, as a fan, was this incident made even worse by the fact that it happened against your greatest rivals, Liverpool?
Oh, definitely. As a fan, they're the most anticipated games of the season. You want to have a fiery, well-contested match that the ref stays out of. And I don't think I can repeat what I said when it first happened. I think definitely I agree that he brandished that red card way too quickly. And they do need help in some way or other to just take a moment, step back and say, was this really the heat of the moment? I think the most defining thing now for me is whether he will accept the appeal by Everton and rescind the card after seeing the video footage coming back.
I have to comment on is that your wallpaper behind you? It is spectacular.
It's a flag.
Oh, that would have been, for Phil, I'm not sure you can see it, but there's a massive Everton crest behind Alexa's head, which if that had been her wallpaper, would have been quite something. But yeah, you're talking about the punishment or getting the red card rescinded. Do you think referees themselves should maybe get more punishment if it is found that a mistake has been made?
I think there does need to be some better recourse for clubs to go back and say, listen, this person has made blatant mistakes in XYZ games, either against a certain team or for a certain team. There does need to be a bit more accountability. I do think that we as fans do have to accept that the heat of the moment, the fast pace of the game, sometimes we do miss things. And I think for most part, we do accept that that's football. Sometimes the call goes against you, sometimes it goes for you. But for the big blatant ones, we do need some way of just getting that, I guess, under control is a way to say it.
Well, let me bring in something that Manchester United's Michael Owen had to say on Twitter about referees after the game. He said, watched loads of rugby lately, both union and league. I'm an expert all of a sudden. Their refereeing system has to transfer to football. Football's answer so far has been to add 2 more officials behind the goals. Still waiting to see one of them make a decision. Phil, what do you make of that?
Well, I totally agree with Michael. I think even little things like timekeeping, should the referee, with all that's going on, say in a Liverpool Everton game or any derby game or any game in the Premiership or in league football, should the referee have to consistently stop his watch for timekeeping? I think he's got bigger things on his plate than just looking at the time. Rugby, somebody else takes care of the clock. You know, in terms of goal line technology, I'm all for bringing in goal line technology. Will it slow the game down? Yes, but I think we'll get more decisions right. In terms of rescinding the yellow card, I think that would be the right thing to do. I think it's a process that we need to go through now, where Jack Rodwell, who's been playing well all season, he's been punished unfairly. And I think the right thing for Martin Atkinson to do now would be to come out and say, I made a bad call, it was a human error. And I'm all for, you know, we're talking now about decisions. This is the beauty of football, that we're now debating something that happened in the game yesterday. That's what makes football so great. And I don't want to slow down and spoil that process. But tomorrow, hopefully, common sense will prevail. OK, well, that is the thoughts of Phil Neville. Please do get in touch if you've got any questions for the Everton captain. Maybe use the hashtag SWHYS. We're going to carry on the conversation here on Sports World Have Your Say in just a couple of minutes. Hello, welcome back to Sports World Have Your Say with me, Amanda Davis. We've got the Everton captain, Phil Neville, with us this week. He's in a studio in Manchester. We've also got Alexa with us, an Everton fan in New York. And we've got Rosie, who is a Spurs fan, with us. And it was Spurs who came out on top in the North London derby earlier today. They won 2-1. But before we go any further, let's just have a look at how the Premier League table stands this evening after this weekend's games. Manchester United are still top on goal difference, ahead of their now great rivals Manchester City. Newcastle in 4th, still unbeaten. And Swansea, look at them, they're in 10th, up into the top half after that impressive 2-0 win over Stoke today. In terms of the bottom, it is Bolton still propping up the rest. They were thumped 5-1 by Chelsea earlier today. Blackburn second from bottom. Then Wigan, Fulham up to 12th after their impressive victory over QPR. Arsenal now 15th, though, after that defeat. Well, so it was Spurs who came out on top in the bottom battle of the North London derby. Arsenal's defence again seemed to be the problem, Phil. Yeah, I think they're definitely conceding too many goals. I think to finish in the top 4 and to win a Premier League, I think you need to be solid at the back. And at the moment, every time a team goes, looks to attack them, it looks like they can score a goal. And yeah, they've bought Mertesacker, who's an outstanding German international. But it takes time to bed these players in. And for me, the biggest loss to Arsenal is Vermaelen. I think he's been, for the last 8 months who he's not played for Arsenal, he's been a loss. He's the rock at the back. And I think if he would have been playing today, Tottenham wouldn't have had as many chances as what they got. And they played Alex Song there, who is a central midfield player playing in the back 4. Koscielny's out injured. Giroux's out injured. So at the moment they are suffering, and they're suffering badly, and they've just got to accept the criticism that comes their way, because some of the defending at times was pretty schoolboy stuff.
Rosie, how smug are you?
I'm not smug at all, actually. I'm too happy to feel smug. You know, I think that Schadenfreude can be a lot of fun, but I think I'm here today not to bury Arsenal, but to really rejoice in Tottenham playing very well.
But they didn't have it all their own way. It was a tough day at the office for them.
Well, it was a tough day. I mean, this certainly wasn't easy at all. And you know, to be honest, of course, I wouldn't dare go into a game against Arsenal feeling remotely certain that we'd pull through. Nevertheless, I think it's a team to feel really good about. I mean, I think our midfield is so spectacular. I think despite all the grumbling about what Harry Redknapp did or didn't do during the transfer period, it turned out he may have made some really brilliant decisions. Parker's been a great asset. Adebayor, a great asset too. So, you know, rather than really dissing Arsenal, I'm just really proud of Tottenham Hotspur.
OK, well, let's go to the phone lines. Charles has called in. He's an Arsenal fan from Liberia. What was your take on today, Charles?
Well, I'm not a disappointing for us, the Arsenal fan, but a little bit I was slightly impressed with the performances. You know, it's not like the Blackburn game or the Manchester United game. I think they improved a lot, but still the defense needs to be really, really worked on. As Phil Neville said, I think when Vermaelen comes back, you know, we're going to be a better improved team defensively, because he's so far our best defender. I think Mertesacker is getting adjusted, but he's too soft. With respect to the English game, trust me, you have to be really, really tough. But for now, he's not tough. I think when Vermaelen comes back, we'll prefer Vermaelen with Koscielny. I think they make a very tough test. So I'm a bit disappointed for the result, though, but the performances today wasn't really too bad, really.
OK, Charles, thank you ever so much for getting in touch with us here at Sports World. Have your say. Why don't you do the same? Maybe give us a call using country code 4420 70 83 73 33. Phil, let's come back to you. We've had a question for you posted on Twitter by Michael. He says, why do you think no one wants to buy our great club? We know it's been well documented, Bill Kenwright trying to get some money in at Everton, but what do you think is the problem?
Well, I think we are obviously a club that is for sale at the moment. The chairman has made no secret of the fact that we need investment, and we need investment fast. I think the biggest problem we've got is that the chairman is a massive Evertonian, and he's not going to sell the club to, say, for instance, similar owners that Birmingham have had, West Ham have had in the past. Leeds have gone down that road where people come in, promise the earth, and then end up jumping ship with the club in serious trouble. Bill Kenwright's not going to let that happen. He wants the right investor to come with the right amount of money, with a long-term plan for the club, and it takes time for this to happen. And I know there's other clubs in the country that have been bought recently by good owners. You look at Man City, they've obviously had fantastic owners. Liverpool have had the right investment, but if you look to Liverpool's owners before that, the fans weren't happy with them. So I think it's a really tough decision to pick the right owners who's got the right amount of financial backing, because for someone to take over at Everton, the club do need financially backing, not just the team, but a new stadium, the infrastructure, and obviously to pay off the debts that we've got at this moment in time. And we've got a very shrewd chairman who's going to do what's best for the club.
Yeah, well, we've had this tweet from Liverpool Transfer News that we've spotted. It says, Everton announced they've fetched £100 from the total coins thrown at LFC players. David Moyes excited about the January transfer window. Alexa, let's put that to you. How difficult is it to look across Liverpool and see them with all the money at the moment?
Kind of used to it. I actually got a very similar comment from my dad saying that they'd picked up all the coins and Moyes was going to use it for transfers. Going back to something Phil said, I heard that apparently the buyers of Man City made inquiries into buying Everton. But I believe they said it was after they'd already bought Man City. So I don't think as an Evertonian we would want an owner who is split between two loyalties. So I do think that Ken Wright is looking for that person who is going to be right. Liverpool have new owners now, but the ones before them did not do a very great job. And so it's a very tricky subject to bring up as a fan because we do want the investment. We do want to see our club grow and keep going, but it's also, we don't want it in the wrong hands.
And I suppose that this time at the moment just highlights the importance of David Moyes for the club, Phil.
It does, 100%. And going back to your last question to Alexis, is that, you know, it's not just like the big boys that our fans and players and management and chairman has to look at. You look at Stoke City, who have spent a fortune. You look at Queen's Park Rangers, who have got new investment and spent a fortune. Fulham have spent a lot of money. It's not just clubs in the top four that are spending money, it's clubs outside the top four too, the top four too. And we're lucky, we've got a great manager, we've got a great chairman who knows and wants the best for the club. We've got a great set of players.
At that point, I'm going to cut in, Phil.
Okay.
Phil, I'm sorry, we're running out of time. Stay with us here on Sports World. Have your say. We'll be back in a couple of minutes. Hello, welcome to Sports World. Have your say with me, Amanda Davis. Your weekly chance to tell us the score once the final whistle has gone. This week we've got the Everton captain Phil Neville with us. We're talking derbies, dissent and the dishing out of red cards and what should be done about officials in football. The conversation is already well underway on Facebook and Twitter. Please do get involved. The team are waiting to speak to you if you want to give us a call or send us a message. But before we go any further, let's get a summary of the latest news. Hello, you're watching Sports World. Have your say with me, Amanda Davis. We've got the Everton captain Phil Neville with me and Alexa, who is an Everton fan in New York, and Gylfi, a West Ham fan and former international referee in Iceland. We've also got Rosie with us, who is a Spurs fan in New York, but I'm going to bring in Scott. He is a Liverpool fan who's given us a call from Melbourne in Australia. I think you've got some reaction to Luis Suarez's reaction to the challenge from Jack Rodwell yesterday.
Absolutely. I was saying earlier that I obviously any decision that goes against Everton I welcome ordinarily, but I've got to say that it was pretty shameful to support Liverpool after watching the reaction of the players and the fans to support such a decision, and that's based on everyone sort of giving the referee a hard time, which obviously it was a terrible decision on his part. But I think the players have got to start taking some responsibility. I've heard heat of the moment. I listened to Phil this morning mention that Michael Owen had said that he'd been watching league and rugby union, and of course we've just gone through a weekend of AFL grand finals and rugby league grand finals, and feigning injury is something that neither of our sports here has, it hasn't crept into our game yet, unlike football. I'm only 36 and I've watched it escalate and snowball into what it is today, which obviously if the referee can't ever determine how serious the injury is from one weekend to the next, from one foul to the next, how can he base his decision truly?
Phil, do you think there needs to be more of a punishment for simulation and diving?
Well, I think it's something that we need to eradicate from English football. It's my one biggest bugbear. If I see it in training, if I see the young players do it, yeah, we can see it happening abroad. The influx of foreign players has brought that to England, and I hate it when you see a big 6'4", strapping, muscly centre-back or a centre-forward rolling over. It absolutely, it riles me. But the punishment for that is a yellow card. I'm not so sure that Martin Atkinson saw what Luis Suarez was doing yesterday, rolling around. I think all he saw was he thought he saw a two-footed challenge by Jack Rodwell. Yep, the reaction from Luis Suarez was probably natural for any foreign player or certain players in the Premiership nowadays, that they do roll around, something that we do need to eradicate, but I still think it was a poor decision.
OK, well, Femi Feck says, sent us a message on Twitter using the hashtag SWHYS. Phil says, Liverpool has all the chances to top the table. We need understanding. I'm not sure they're going to get much understanding from Goodison Park, but we're going to move on because it is just amazing the difference a week can make in football. It was only 7 days ago that a lot of you out there and here in the office, it has to be said, were writing off Frank Lampard. Well, he's had something to say about that this week. He scored in the Champions League and then added a hat-trick in Chelsea's 5-1 win over Bolton today. Suleiman Akbar has said Frank Lampard today has shown AVB he's capable of retaining his position in the Chelsea first 11. And this is what Frank Lampard actually had to say after that hat-trick today.
I'm hungry to play and I want to play, and I wouldn't say I'm a happy boy when I'm not playing and things like that, because I want to earn my money, but at the same time you have to have respect. I respect my manager, I respect the players and the squad that we've got, and I'll always keep working hard to try and play with this club.
You scored hat-tricks before, this one of the best?
It feels like that at the minute. No, it's very enjoyable to score one away from home as well in a team, and you know, after the moment I've had personally, and to come back in the team and do that today was probably one of the most special ones I've had.
Phil, quite a statement from Frank Lampard today on the pitch.
No, it was quite a statement, and it's funny really, because the great players, they don't speak in the media, they speak out there on the pitch, and yeah, people have, I think, have been happy with the way that Frank Lampard's been left out by England, left out by Chelsea, and they've been almost lapping it up really, and they've seen someone that's been down and they've tried to kick him down, and you don't write off class. Somebody that's played for England 87 times is a great player. Frank Lampard scores important goals, and you know, he scored 4 goals this week, and that's the best way to answer all your criticisms, by going out onto the pitch and you know, and proving your point. Because for someone like Frank Lampard, who's done everything in the game, what an unbelievable example that is to someone, say, like Carlos Tevez, who didn't want to come on a sub the other night. Frank Lampard's been subbing 4 out of the last 5 Chelsea games. He's kept his mouth shut, he's kept his head down, he's worked hard in training, and he's let his football do the talking. And for a professional, that is a great example to set to any young player out there.
Well, we are going to be talking about Carlos Tevez in a few moments. Please do get in touch and have your say. If you're a Manchester City fan, we would like to hear from you. But Frank Lampard is a 33-year-old, possibly not helped by the fact that his manager is the same age, Andre Villas-Boas. But a lot of people were saying last week that he was past his best. So this is what Henry Winter, who's a main football journalist at the Daily Telegraph, a newspaper here in England, he tweeted after today's game: cancel the Stanner chairlift, hold the pipe and slippers. Lampard doesn't look ready for retirement just yet. Would you have him in your team, Phil?
100%. I think England have got a massive game next Friday, I think it is, against Montenegro, and he would be the first player on my team sheet. You know, I'm going through a similar stage with myself at the moment. I've been subbing the last 3 or 4 games for Everton, and you know, it's difficult, because when you've been an ever present for so long, it is a massive kick up the backside for you. But there's only one way to come out of you know, disappointment. That's by working hard. And Frank is a great player, class player, scores important goals, and like I say, he'd be the first name on my team sheet come next Friday night for England.
Rosie, as a Spurs fan, do you have much love for Frank Lampard?
Well, of course not. I think what I've been hearing is absolutely right, that, you know, really the measure of a player is what we see on the pitch. And anything that happens off that is really beside the point. And, you know, I have to respect someone who, after a very difficult period, really pulls through and shows what he's capable of doing. You know, I wouldn't say I would instantly want him on Tottenham, of course, but that's mainly because I'm really pleased with the team we've got.
And it was a hat-trick against Bolton, bottom of the table. Does that take some of the gloss off his performance today? Phil, do you want to come into that one?
Didn't know if you were still speaking with me. Well, listen, you know, I mean, day in and day out, different things happen. You know, at the risk of relying on cliches, it's really about sort of picking yourself up and moving on. I mean, of course, to bring Tottenham into this kind of conversation, we had a really difficult start to the season. We had an incredibly demoralizing summer, particularly with the drama surrounding Luka Modric. And our first game was canceled, and our first couple of games were not good. But now we've really picked up, and you just have to sort of just keep moving forward and really play as a team. And I think it's now sort of question of really believing what players are capable of doing and building confidence back.
OK, well, we're going to be talking the tantrum from Carlos Tevez when we come back in a couple of minutes. Stay with us here on Sports World. Have your say. Hello, welcome back to Sports World. Have your say with me, Amanda Davis. We've got Alexa, Rosie and the Everton captain, Phil Neville, with us at the moment. Let me just have a look at some of the tweets that have been coming into us here. Isle has said Arsenal have a respected name and legacy. Why don't people keep that in mind? And Lib Dem Beast, aka The Beast, has tweeted using the hashtag SWHYS, player for player and team performance-wise, Chelsea are better than Manchester United. What do you think about that? Please do get in touch. We're going to talk about Manchester City, though, because they showed there is life after Carlos Tevez putting a controversial week behind them with a convincing 4-0 win over Blackburn on Saturday. But the issue has been by no means put to bed. And Phil, we've had a question from Rob. He wanted to ask you about your take on the Tevez situation. What would you do to Tevez, it is worded, if you were in Mancini's shoes?
Well, I would do exactly what he's done. I think I would, if he refused to come off the bench, and obviously that has been the case, then he has no further part to play in a Manchester City shirt. And people ask me, was I surprised by his actions? No, I don't think I was, because for someone that had just won the European Cup, then to leave Man United to join your local rivals, Man City, that was a surprise. That shocked me. Then he scored a lot of goals for Man City, was doing really well, became a real fan's favourite. Then he wanted a transfer. Then he came back, signed a new contract. Then he wanted another transfer. So, you know, I think it's been a real roller coaster for the last two or three seasons in Manchester, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. And I think it's time maybe that he left. He went somewhere where he was going to be happy, because he's clearly not been happy for the last 2 years. There's been whispers coming out that he's homesick. He wants to be in Argentina. He wants to be in Spain. He's clearly not happy in Manchester. If somebody's not happy, then get him out of the place.
Do you think, in some respects, this is a problem of Manchester City's making? He said he wanted to leave a year ago, and then they made him captain.
Yeah, you know, and that's why I'm not surprised now, because he did. He put a transfer request in. I remember, you know, Everton was playing Man City. We were on the bus on the way to the ground. We thought Tevez wasn't playing because he'd put a transfer request in. Then we heard on the radio that he'd signed a new 5-year contract and he'd been made captain of the club, and it shocked everybody. Such a quick turnaround, and then obviously he went away. He wasn't happy. Came back. And he wants to leave again. And in the summer, probably Man City made a big mistake of not probably getting rid of someone that didn't really want to be wearing the blue shirt this season. And, you know, take away from the fact that he's a fantastic player. I mean, I've played against him a number of times for Man United, for West Ham, and for Manchester City, and he's someone that you don't want to play against. He is world class on his day. He's just not happy playing football in Manchester at the moment, and I think Mancini has dealt with it in the correct way and said, I can't deal with him, he's not playing for me anymore, and end of story.
Well, Versun Hojan has messaged us on Facebook saying Mancini is the engineer of the whole episode. He brought in many stars at the club and everyone wants to play. This has brought more harm than good. And I'm pleased to welcome Assad to the programme as well. He's a Manchester United fan who's called from Zambia. What's your take on the Carlos Tevez affair?
Oh, my take on the Carlos Tevez affair is that Mancini is actually not getting the facts right, because Tevez seems to be very committed to the club. But
sorry, did you just say he is committed to the club?
Yes, he is committed to the club. That's why he's there. A world-class player like Tevez was not supposed to be on the bench in the first place. I mean, Tevez was supposed to be in the game, playing the game, and then you call him up after. I mean, the game was already wrapped up, and then you say the guy actually refused to play. I think that's not very fair on Tevez.
Alexa, do you think Carlos Tevez's actions this week have been the actions of a player committed to a club?
I think they're reprehensible. If he wanted out, as a while ago, he should have gone. He stayed because they gave him more money. To go back to character, we were talking about earlier, Frank Lampard kept his head down and he's done his talking on the pitch. That's the kind of player we need. This attitude that players have these days, that they can dive, that they can dictate what goes on in these games, what they do, how they play. I think clubs need much more of a recourse to turn around and say, hey, if you refuse to do your job, we're not going to pay you. If I went to work tomorrow and said, oh, I don't want to do that, it wasn't what I was hired for, I'd be written up or let go. The fact that this guy can refuse to play because he just doesn't want to be a sub and then still collect his paycheck, it's absolutely reprehensible. It's to me, it's a showing of moral character that I don't agree with or appreciate.
So do you not want to see him in the Premier League anymore?
That's a tough question. I mean, you can never deny his talent.
He's not the first player to have done this. Paul Scholes admitted that he refused to play at Manchester United this week.
I think that there is always a backside to a story, and we as fans don't know everything, but he's obviously not happy here, and that just, you've got to go where you're happy. There's a player in Spain, I think it was Kaká, who refused a transfer for record-breaking fees because he said, I'm happy here, I'm making enough money, why do I need more to move somewhere I'm not happy? I know a year or two later he did move somewhere else, but at the time I was shocked in a very good way. That's what we need. You need to stand up and say, I'm not happy, and stick to that, and not agree to another 5-year contract, knowing you've been unhappy, knowing that things may or may not actually change, and then a year later decide to, in the public eye, as we see it, throw a bit of a hissy fit.
Phil?
Well, you mentioned Paul Scholes there, and the difference between the two situations is that Paul Scholes was totally out of character. Someone that had nailed his flag to the mast with Man United, been an absolutely unbelievable ambassador and professional. He had one blip, and I think we all allowed one blip. I think he got fined a couple of weeks' wages. I think we've read that in his book serialisation this week. I think the thing with Carlos Tevez is, and this is not out of character, he's thrown his toys out of the pram before, and it looks like he'll do it again. And the sad thing is that the player still has all the power, really, because City spent £25 million on him. I think you think to yourself, well, they've got enough money now, shove him in the reserve, shove him with the youth team, and then in 4 years' time, they can Carlos Tevez can leave for nothing, and they actually losing £25 million. And the sad thing is, will he appear in the Premiership again? Well, there's already talk that that West Ham want him, so there will be clubs out there that want him because he is a quality player, world class at that.
Well, let's have a listen to what some of the other Premier League managers have said on the Tevez situation. Roberto Mancini won a lot of plaudits this week with his handling of the affair. And these managers include his former boss at Manchester United, Sir Alex Ferguson.
All I can say is I think that Roberto Mancini has come out showing his strength of character and strength of management. I think it's important today's management. That's it.
If we're not careful, we're going to alienate ourselves you know, the footballers are going to alienate themselves from what normal football people are. And there's a lot of people out there who are a little bit disillusioned with the behaviour and what comes with this huge salaries they get, and there's got to be some sort of responsibility.
Well, we've got Gylfi with us, a former international referee who is actually a West Ham fan. Gylfi, would you like to see Carlos Tevez back at West Ham?
Well, I'm talking as a West Ham fan now, and I love him to bits, and I was there when he and Robert Green saved us from relegation, and I love him to bits, and we put Manchester United celebration on hold for an hour because we were celebrating his goal, and you know, all teams have mavericks. You know, Phil should know that he played with Cantona, and you know, he was not just a normal person. And for me, it would be absolutely ridiculous not to, you know, it's for me, Tevez and Mancini, they should shake hands, and it's all for the best for Manchester City, and for football, and for us watching football. I want to watch Tevez playing football in England. Thank you very much.
Jonathan, I think, has joined us on Skype. You're a Chelsea fan in Israel. Welcome along. What do you make of the Carlos Tevez affair?
Well, as a Chelsea supporter, probably relief that we won't have to face him. He's a wonderful player, but there are limits, and from the sound of things, he's exceeded the limits. You don't go against the team and the manager. Simple as that.
Phil, do you hold that view?
No, I totally agree. You know, yeah, I've played with some mavericks, Cantona probably being the biggest one, but yeah, you can make one mistake. But I think when you're constantly making 2, 3, 4 mistakes, I think there becomes a time when, and I think Sir Alex Ferguson said it, you've got to show strong management. And to be fair to Mancini, he's done that. You know, it's not the first time that there's been a problem between Mancini and Tevez. He's obviously, you know, they've mended bridges before. This was probably a bridge too far.
OK, at this point, I'm going to bring you some news that hasn't been confirmed. I must stress Nottingham Forest were beaten 3-1 today. Lots of tweets and Twitter talk that Steve McLaren might have resigned, including from player Dexter Blackstock. Phil, what would you make of that?
Well, I mean, I'm a massive fan of Steve McLaren. He was one of the best coaches I worked with at Man United. He then became my coach with England and obviously my manager with England, and I'm a massive fan of him, and I still keep in contact with him now. So really disappointed. I thought this was going to be his big year of turning round his reputation in England. He'd got a great reputation abroad with FC 20 and Wolfsburg, and I thought this was, you know, this would get him over the England job, and but he's gone into a difficult club, and you saw the job that Billy Davies had there, and he was constantly at loggerheads with the chairman, and he had a difficult job, and he found it difficult at times. And I think Steve's probably found it just as difficult. He's had promises that have not been fulfilled, and more importantly, the run of results that they're on at the moment suggests that the team aren't playing for him.
Can you see him coming to another club in England in the near future? I
hope so, because he is one of our best coaches, and we want our best coaches staying in England and managing Premiership clubs. We don't want us to keep employing foreign managers. The next England manager needs to be an Englishman.
OK, on that note, a very strong line. Thank you ever so much, the Everton captain, Phil Neville, for joining us on this week's Sports World Have Your Say. Don't forget to carry on the conversation on Facebook and Twitter, and we'll see you same time, same place next week. Goodbye.